Hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Tackletime podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nate. Tonight we're changing it up a bit. A little bit normal, a little bit outside of the normal that we do. It seems like all we do is talk about bass anymore. We got to change it up. We're talking about catfish tonight. So Joshua French from Joshua French Outdoors is going to help us give us the intro to catfishing. If you're unfamiliar, uninitiated, and want to learn a little bit more, this is the episode for you. Everything from recommendations on getting started with gear to line weights and all kinds of stuff. So, we're going to dive into all that. I won't give too much of it. As you're listening to this video, if you realize that you want to get started into catfishing, you don't have the gear, you better check out tacklebuys.com. Tacklebuys.com has thousands and thousands and thousands of sale listings from across the web for all kinds of gear that you probably already use or might need in the near future. So if you're going to buy a new catfish rod, check out tacklebuys.com. Before you go and buy new line, new hooks, whatever it is, all the kind of stuff that we're talking about here in this episode, check out tacklebuys.com before you spend more money elsewhere. Before you go shopping online, before you go to your favorite local sporting goods store, the one that's a physical location, check out Tackle Buys and see if you can find what you want for less. Save a little bit of money. You can buy more gear. Of course, everyone likes a little bit more gear. So enough about that. Let's get into the episode. Alrighty, guys. Tonight, Joshua French. As you can see, he is definitely dressed for the occasion. He looks better than me tonight. Josh, say hello.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys. I'm definitely glad you were able to make a little time to come on with us here tonight. I'm definitely excited to have you. We are changing things up a little bit, and we're going to be talking about catfishing tonight, as opposed to, it seems like pretty much everyone on the podcast so far is all about bass. So we're changing it up tonight. We got to have a little bit of variety. So Josh is going to school us on catfishing. So all things catfishing. So I have to ask, how did you get started in the catfish? I mean, it seems like everyone starts with the little stuff and finds their way from there. But how did you get started?
Well, I started as a kid. Obviously, my dad, he would take me bass fishing and trout fishing quite a bit. But I had a neighbor growing up. He was always into catfishing, and I always remember seeing him bringing big fish home because they ate them all the time, and I always wanted to go. And where I'm from, Virginia, we had New River, and everybody's like, my mom was scared to let me go because it's a dangerous place or whatever. But finally, I ended up talking her into going, and I think the first one I caught decent was like 8 or 9 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Just once I caught that first fish, it was on in. I started loving it, started doing it more, started catching more fish, and just started learning.
So, That's awesome. So did you used to live in Virginia then?
Yeah, I'm from Mud Fork, Virginia. It's close to Tazewell, Virginia.
Gotcha.
It's a little country town. But that got an obsession started basically. I think I was about 15 once I really started catfishing.
Oh, okay. All right. So what kind of drew it in? Was it the size of the fish? I mean, what drew you into catfishing over something else?
Honestly, I think it started out as something else, as something different. And then just a challenge. I always use like smaller rods and reels starting out, and you start catching 10-pound fish and have the drag running, just adrenaline pumping, just the thrill of it. And started catching bigger, and it's a great adrenaline rush once you get started doing it. And it's awesome. I love it.
Dang. No, that's awesome. So I know a little bit about you, but I'm sure a lot of the folks who were listening in tonight, have never heard of you and want to learn a little bit more about you. So tell us about, what you do. I know you have a YouTube channel. You upload a ton of content too. What are you into?
I'm a general manager at Dunkin' Donuts here in Morgantown. So that's my fishing money maker there. So I've been doing that a few years now since I moved up here. I used to be a loader operator at a sawmill before I moved up here. And so I came up here, and that's what I've been doing the last 3 years, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Do that by day, fish by night.
Wow. So I know you have a ton of catfishing videos and all that. So what's your YouTube channel mainly about? I know that's a main part of your focus.
It's just fishing in general. Usually, from May till October, it's mainly catfishing. Is my main focus. I will go bass fish some. We got Cheat Lake, like 20 minutes away. But like the colder months, catfish, they don't do as well. You can still catch them, but you're not going to catch usually big numbers, especially for me fishing from the bank. So then I target trout.
Gotcha.
Because you catch them all winter long. It don't matter how cold it is. As long as it ain't froze over, I can still cast a spinner. So
Okay, awesome.
I see it.
Do you do much ice fishing when it starts to get cold, or you're sticking from the bank?
I've tried ice fishing the Cooper's Rock a couple times. I mean, we caught a few fish, but nothing to really keep me really interested in ice fishing.
I gotcha.
I don't mind the cold, but I ain't a real big fan of it either. So,
no, I hear you. I know it's tough for a lot of folks, especially just getting started. So that can be a barrier, and that's what one of these days we're gonna have somebody who's an ice fishing pro on, and that's exactly what this podcast is all about. Is trying to make certain aspects of fishing approachable, so people can start from nowhere, not having any knowledge in a subject at all, and feel comfortable going out there. So if somebody obviously our goal here with us tonight is we're talking about catfish. It'd be great for somebody who's never gone for catfish, and you're going to school us on everything related to what we're talking about tonight, and then they can feel comfortable and go and try on their own. So I think that's going to be a topic of discussion here in the near future. It's definitely ice fishing. So there's not going to be much else to talk about.
Yeah, I would like to get more into ice fishing and stuff too, but it really hasn't really been cold enough to make safe ice anyway.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of waiting on that to see how that plays out.
Awesome.
See how Mother Nature does us.
No, so I know recently, if I remember, you had just hit just over 1,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel, huh?
Yeah, I'm a little over 1,100 now.
Wow, that's awesome. Good for you. I know you've been working at it for a long time.
I've been doing it a little bit over 2 years now. It's been a grind.
I believe that.
I didn't realize how much work it'd be, but I enjoy it. Make a lot of great memories, meet a lot of people. It's been a fun road. I'm gonna keep seeing how far I can go with it.
That's awesome. Now you have a collection of gear sitting behind you. What in the world is all that stuff, my man?
This is not my good stuff. My good stuff's most of it's in the car, and I got a couple rods here beside of me. That's just ambassador.
Gotcha.
That's a little catfish rod. I got some bigger catfish rods, but I thought rods might come up in our conversation.
Definitely.
So here's my bigger rod. It's got let's see what it is. It's a Kuma Coronata, and I got it. It's a little bit bigger. It'll hold bigger bait. So that's one reason I got it. I got it on a Whisker Seeker 7.5 foot medium heavy rod.
Gotcha. Okay.
I like it. I usually throw one big bait each time I go. Then on my other poles, I'll use smaller stuff. They say big bait, big fish, but that's not necessarily true. But you always kind of feel a little hopeful, I guess.
You know what? Before I figured we probably ought to lay the groundwork for all the bass fishermen who are listening in who want to get started in the catfish. Give us the rundown on on catfish in general. If somebody wants to get into it, where should they start?
Catfishing, I think it's one of the most simplest forms of fishing compared to like bass or walleye or any of that. I'd use, the only thing I really use is no roll sinkers, 3 ounce. A lot of people laugh at me for using 50-pound test, but I use 50-pound Whisker Seeker.
Okay.
It's a smaller diameter. It's easier to work with. There's a lot of other brands you get be real thick and it's hard to tie a knot. I use the triple threat circle hooks.
Gotcha.
I was really skeptical about those, but now I stand by them. If you get a fish hits those, 99% of the time they're going to be hooked.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just run Carolina rigs. Any bass fisherman know what a Carolina rig is, but it's simple. About a foot long leader. I don't use much live bait anymore. I usually just use cut bait, cut shad, or cut skipjack usually. It's a lot easier to fool with. You don't have to haul it around trying to keep it alive and everything else. Just get you a cooler, throw you some ice in there, you cut bait in there, you're good to go all night.
Gotcha. So you're mainly going at night then, I'm assuming, right?
Generally, I mean, I will fish in a day for them. A lot of people think you can't catch catfish in a day, but you can catch them 24/7. It don't matter. They're there and they're hungry. They're bite.
Definitely. Gotcha. Okay. So you're not a big fan of, I know a lot of people like the homemade baits, dough balls and, and peanut butter and all kinds of crazy combinations. Are you, a fan of any of those? Have you used them? Much success?
I've tried a little bit of everything. I've tried a lot of those dough baits, the stink baits, the dip baits, all that stuff. They will catch fish, but my experience, 8, 10 pounds, that's about big as you're going to get with stuff like that. I mean, if you're just trying to catch, 4 or 5 for dinner, I mean, that's a good way to go. But I like catching the bigger ones. So I always say natural. Just whatever's in that body of water you're fishing in.
Gotcha.
Whether it's bluegill, anything legal that you can use for bait that's in the body of water is your best bet.
Now for, like a normal bluegill size, one that's the size of your palm, are you throwing the entire thing out? Are you chopping it in half? What are you, for what you're going after? What's it look like?
If I'm fishing Ohio River, I'm going to cut it up. Like one by the size of my hand, I'll cut the tail off, then I'll just cut it in the middle.
Gotcha.
Just put your circle hook through it. Make sure there's no scales on the end of your hook.
Mm-hmm.
If you got one little scale on there, that can mess your whole hook set up and you lose a fish.
No, that's a great point. I think people forget about, and I know that's probably a mistake that I would make right off the bat. So that's a good point.
I've done it plenty of times myself. It's easy to do. You don't really think about it. You're just fishing. You just put it on the hook, sling it out there. And said that one scale can mess it all up for you.
Yeah, definitely. Got it. Okay, so obviously, I think for anybody who's been fishing for any amount of time, I think most people know, catfish are mostly bottom feeders. They hunt by smell, and they're So, do you normally use frozen bait, and then it kind of thaws in the water, or do you use just cold bait? I mean, obviously you have a cooler full of ice, but I mean, are they like frozen solid?
Typically, I'll be able to keep my bait froze most of the night, but I will take a cast net with me, or lures or whatever to catch other fish for bait. Gotcha. Frozen's better, but the frozen bait, I've got a lot of fish on frozen bait. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can catch a fresh fish, catch some shad in a cast net. That's your best bet.
Got it. Okay, no, that's awesome. So what does a normal night? So if you're going to go out fishing one night, if you got a few hours or a bunch of time to spend, what's a normal night look for you? What are you doing? How do you set up? How many rods do you take? What all that.
I'm typically fish with 4 catfish rods.
Okay.
And I'll take 5 with me. Once in a while, I will take the 5th one throw out. But I usually try to get there about an hour before dark. That way I can make sure all my leaders are good. There's no nicks where my sinker's been sliding up and down my line.
Gotcha.
So fix any of those mistakes. Then I'll try to work on fresh bait. It's one of my main goals. As soon as I get my poles put where I think they should be for the night, then I'll go work on my live bait or fresh bait. See what I can do with that. And I use glow sticks myself and a headlight. A lot of people use lanterns. I personally don't.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you seen a difference in that, or is it easier for you? What's the reason behind it?
I don't think it really matters, but I just don't like all that light. Gotcha. Mainly for bugs. You can use off or whatever, but those lanterns or lights brings in the bugs like crazy in the middle of summer.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. sorry, I interrupted you. So from that point, you work on your bait, you catch something, you get it tossed out in the water. I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, I'll usually try to catch enough to at least get fresh bait on all my poles. I'll try to find like a current seam. Those are really good places. Eddies. I mean, basically, if you got current, it washes food right down to that eddy. And usually a big fish is just going to lay around those eddies or
Gotcha.
right off the edge of the current. So I try to position the bait the best I can, or at least if I know the spot, I don't worry so much about it after dark. But definitely I like starting off at least where I can position everything exactly where I want it to be at. Because a lot of times, 5 foot makes a big difference.
Sure, definitely. So you're getting your bait, you're getting it out there, you're feeling it around for spots that you think you're going to have a fish laying in. I mean, how long do you normally let a piece of bait sit there before you pull it out and try the next spot?
Well, I usually tend to stay in one spot all night, but I try at least, if it's cold water, you don't have to check your bait as much where it's so cold. The scent don't travel that far and your bait stays fresher longer. But like in typical 7-degree water temperature or something like that, I'll reel in every 30 minutes. I'll check my bait, make sure there's nothing wrong with it. If it still looks good, I'll throw it back out. Still got blood and stuff coming out of it, but if not, I'll chuck it to the side. Then I'll get another piece put on there and repeat that usually all night long.
Gotcha. Okay, so I know a lot of folks who will have it out there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and then they don't feel like that spot's really producing. They're gonna grab another spot in the current or in the other spot of a lake, for instance. I mean, are you so you're not typically doing that?
Generally, I don't, but a lot of times it depends on where I'm fishing at. So I'll try to find like 5 or 6 areas to do that. I'll at least fish somewhere a couple hours. They say typically if a fish don't bite in 20 or 30 minutes, there's none there, they're not active. So it probably does pay to move more, especially if you can easily do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like where I typically get fish at, I got 3 spots from probably 10 minutes driving range. So
Gotcha.
I'll bounce between those sections sometimes.
Okay. So somebody starting, I think realistic, it's pretty straightforward, when it comes down to it. As you said, it's pretty simplistic. Is you get your bait, you get it hooked, you toss it out there, and you obviously you hope that there's something nearby and get it yanked in, and and hopefully you have your fish. I don't know that there's a lot of finesse as opposed to reeling a crankbait in or something like that. So what are some things that people should look out for, that way mistakes that you might have made or mistakes that you see other people making, whether that be with gear or technique, how can we help folks listening and try and get around those errors?
I think a lot of people underestimate the power of catfish for one, and they're typically by like 17-pound test or something like that. So like I was saying earlier, I use a 50-pound whisker seeker. You may not have to go that big, but at least like 40-pound test.
Sure.
Because if those fish get in rocks or anything like that, a little bit of brush, they're going to break you off. And you lost a fish, and there's a fish with a hook in his mouth. And I always try to read water the best you can. Anywhere you see like changes, logs, you see big boulders, you see, like I said, current or anything like that, just always pay attention to stuff like that, because those fish will lay up in that stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
Wait to ambush something. So that always helps if you do things like that. Just buy good hooks. That's another big thing. You start buying cheap stuff, you get your hooks bent out. Buy a good hook. You never know. You might hook a 50-pound fish.
Sure.
If you got cheap tackle, it's just going to tear it up.
Gotcha.
I've seen gears get ripped out of reels from people using, too light of stuff. You don't have to go overkill, but just make sure you got pretty decent stuff anyway. Good drag. Sure.
Gotcha. Okay. So now the whisker seeker line that you're using, that's a braided, if I remember rightly, correct?
They do got braid, but I use the mono.
Oh, okay.
Myself. I think it's got like the diameter about 30-pound test, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a little smaller and it's easy to tie knots with. I snell all my hooks personally, and I use a improved clinch knot to connect it to the swivel, and it really knots up good.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's a great line for people to use.
Okay, cool. So what gear? Obviously, I think everybody. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. I think it's common that a lot of people do use circle hooks. I know a lot of folks who don't use circle hooks on catfish. I know obviously, you want some type of swivel in between, your main line and your leader if you're using it that way. I know obviously they're prone to roll and kind of tug around and get bound up. So I know that's also an important thing a lot of people use. What else do you use that people might not know about?
I use the barrel swivels. I use size 1. Make about a 15-inch leader. And I use the no roll sinkers because when they hit, they just stop. Generally, as long as the current ain't too bad. And the simple Carolina rig is typically what I use.
Okay.
And it works great as far as that goes.
Got it. Okay.
Especially like you said, a lot of channel cats, stuff like that, roll a whole lot with you. So you're better off using something like that to keep your line from getting all knotted up.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's great info. Okay. Anything else you see folks, maybe doing wrong, or that is always a problem or something that catches people up when they're trying to get started into fishing for catfish?
Like if you use shad or skipjack, moon eye, or carp, or any of those fish, I always tell everybody I talk to, take care of your bait. I see people a lot of times say they'll go to the bait shop, they'll buy 5 shad, they'll come to their fishing spot, they'll cut their bag open or put a piece of bait out, they'll throw it out in the water, they'll throw the bag off to the side. It'll be 70 degrees outside, it'll thaw out, it'll get all mushy. Just keep it on ice, just take care of it.
Gotcha.
It'll help a lot. It'll help you definitely catch more fish that way.
Have you seen that makes a big difference?
I honestly believe it does. Because, I know a lot of times I'll be catching fish and I see people around me, not having as much luck as I have.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I chop it up to anyway.
The circle hooks, what size do you typically use, or do you switch it up depending on where you're at?
Well, I switch it up. So I got the Mon River here at the house, and there's smaller channel cats. You might catch a 10-pound channel cat. I use like a 6/0 Eagle Claw circle hook there. Typically, that's a great size for smaller ones, but the bigger fish, I tend to use the Whisker Seeker triple threat 6/0. It's got I don't know if you can see it on your end, but it's an offset.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are really important, I think, with cut bait, because when you hook it, a lot of times when that fish hits it, it will twist the hook, and a regular, just like a J-shaped circle hook, a lot of times your hook point will get hooked back into your bait and cause you to miss the fish.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you got that offset hook, if you got the offset, it'll allow you for better hookups. You get more hookup ratio that way. And it's a heavier duty hook too. It's a stronger made hook. So I'm pretty confident a 60, 70-pound fish wouldn't be no problem at all.
Okay. No, that's good info for sure. So the Eagle Claw, the 3/0 or 6/0 that you were using, is that an offset as well for the smaller fish that you're typically
It's
going
not.
After? Okay.
Usually smaller fish, like small channel cats, they hit really aggressive, really hard. So usually don't place too much of a factor with those. I don't know why. I guess we're just smacking so hard it just quick as they hit and turn, they're hooked.
Gotcha. Okay.
You won't miss many of them.
Now, when I know a lot of folks, with you, you're going to have four rods set up. So you're not typically holding one and waiting for something to happen. How do you normally know? Do you have your bails open? Say on a spinning rod, do you have your bails open and you can kind of see the line going off, or do you have the drag set real light where you can hear it?
I use the bait runners now. I used to not use them, but I used to just use the glow sticks and watch for those. But now I have the bait runners. You can hear those fairly well. That's what I typically watch for.
Okay.
But I know most of the places I fish, your line will be slack. You can see it come off the end of the rod and it's kind of dangling or angle in the water. So a lot of times when you start seeing that line move, you can tell you're getting a bite.
Gotcha.
But usually, most of the time, catfish don't play around a whole lot. So you can definitely know when you got a bite. Your pole, or usually have her bent double.
Okay. Okay. So when you see your line getting pulled away, are you doing a typical, crank it hard, give me a, right through the lip, like, like a lot of folks would imagine a bass type hook set? I mean, or what are you thinking? Is it more a little finesse than that?
Especially if they got it and are running with it and your bait runner's running, I think you basically got to do is just when you rotate your reel or your handle and engage your regular drag system, I'll pull back. I mean, you don't have to. Chances are the fish is already running, it's hooked. But I think it's more of a habit from, just using regular hooks for so long.
Sure.
It's just tend to give it a jerk anyway. But generally, you just click it, pull back, because usually they hook her own self.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I know obviously you get the fish in, you still have to handle it. I know obviously they have spines, which, could be dangerous on their own. And people who don't know, we probably ought to bring them full circle with that as far as the handling aspect once we get the fish in. So how does that work? How can you tell people there?
If it's a smaller fish, like 5 or 6 pounds, you got the two fins on the side. I'll just put my hand behind those. You take like a fish under 10 pounds, like a channel cat or a little blue. If you do lip them, you got to kind of be careful. When they do start to roll, they will take the hide off of your hand. A lot of people use grippers. I have them. I use them when I weigh the fish. But I typically target flatheads. And usually you can just stick your fingers in their mouth and put the thumb under their jaw and just squeeze, and you'll be fine just unhooking them.
Gotcha.
So, channel cats, blue cats, just be kind of skeptical. And usually if they're not really big, you can just grip right in front of their back fin. You just grip right there and you'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Now, I think it's important to mention, for the folks who don't know, catfish having spines, they can, I don't know if it's a venom or if it's an adjutant or whatever, but if you get pricked with some of the spines on the fins, that can be a nasty, nasty ordeal. So you definitely want to, do you wear gloves when you handle them?
I do not.
Okay. So you're one of those daring fellows, but for somebody new, it'd probably be a good idea.
Yeah, gloves or grippers until you get used to handling them. It's probably not a bad idea. Me and my catfishing buddies, we talk about our trophy hand, our hand we always grab the fish with, because you will get your knuckles and hands skin up.
Gotcha.
For sure. So gripper's probably not a bad idea.
Do you normally get your hands torn up when reaching in and grabbing them by the jaw? I mean, I know a lot of folks I've seen, people getting chewed up. How does that work for you?
Usually, once you get them in, they're kind of tired. I mean, a net's not a bad idea at all. I don't use a net myself either, so that's another reason I get my hands tore up. I usually stick my hand in there and grab a hold of them, hold on for dear life. But so usually, like when I'm taking the hook out of their mouth, that's when I start thrashing or something. I'll get my hands scraped up a little bit then, but I'd say that's probably the most. Or when I'm getting ready to go to release them. Seems like once they can sense they're back in that water, they're trying to get away from you.
Gotcha. Sure.
You blame them.
No, for sure. Okay. Definitely. Are you normally keeping any to eat? I know a lot of folks love catfish, so I figure that might be something you're doing.
No, I don't keep any of them. I used to keep a lot when I was younger, but anymore. I caught my first actually good flathead. It was 29 pounds. I caught it in New River, and I put it on a stringer to keep it, and the next morning I woke up, was camping, and I don't know, I just had a change of heart. I seen it, on my stringer, and I was like, this fish is too old and too big just to keep, just to kill it for no reason. So I let it go, and ever since then I've just been catching and releasing myself.
Oh, okay.
So, there's nothing wrong with eating them, but I just choose to let them go back in hopes for somebody else to catch them, or I catch them again another day.
Sure. No, there's no shame in that. I was just curious. I know some folks like to eat, and that's cool. There's no problem either way. So
they're good.
No, they are. They are definitely good. Well, cool. I feel like if we go too much deeper besides an intro tonight, it might be a little too much for somebody to take in. Do you have any other recommendations, for somebody getting started? Anything we didn't talk about, but somebody should know? Any last minute tips?
Just buy good line, stronger pound test, especially if you know there's big fish in the water you're fishing. I think the Okuma Tundra Tough 65s are like $70 on Amazon. They're great. They're a great combo. It'd be a great starter rod and reel for somebody just getting into catfishing.
Gotcha. Okay.
It won't break your banking to see if you like the sport.
You said that was the Tough 65?
Yes, Okuma Tough 65.
Got it. Okay, perfect. We'll try and leave a link to it down there in the show notes for somebody who wants to jump into this. That'd be great.
I started out really with the bait runners with those. I got some pretty good fish off of those.
Awesome.
So a 30-pound fish are handle easy.
Gotcha. Awesome. No, this is great. I definitely I need to broaden my experience and do a little bit more of this kind of stuff and catfishing and obviously like you and I talked a little trout. So now that I think this is a great intro for somebody who wants to get into it a little bit more. And I'd love to have you back at some point soon, and we can talk about maybe a little more detail about other things. But I think as a good intro, I think this is a great place to leave it. So I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been awesome. Definitely. No, this has been great. Tell everybody where they can find you. Facebook, social media, all that stuff. That way they can go and watch your videos and subscribe and all that.
Right on YouTube is Joshua French Outdoors, and my Facebook's is Joshua French, which I do have a Joshua French Outdoor on there as well. But any people, a lot of people ask me tips and stuff. Feel free to, just on Joshua French.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you have Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, it's Joshua French Outdoors on it too.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, we'll leave links to all that in the blog post so people can find it and jump right to it. No, this has been awesome. I definitely want to get out there and do a little more catfish. And I have a poor lonely catfish rod that's been sitting in the corner for a while. I haven't taken out, and she needs to get out and get some use. So one of these days.
I feel like the sport's grown quite a bit the last 4 or 5 years. You see a lot more people getting into it and doing it. They're great fish. They're fun to catch. I have a blast chasing them.
Definitely.
I've been chasing them all summer. The season's starting to wind down, but I'm still in denial. I'm like, oh, maybe another week or two more. I'll keep fishing a few more times.
Us fishermen are firm deniers of reality sometimes. So
I definitely am.
Well, Joshua, thanks again for coming on with us. We're going to go ahead and call this one a night. And again, we'll leave links where everybody can find you in the show notes, and go ahead and chop this one off here. So thank you again for coming on.
You're welcome, buddy. Anytime.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.